All right, Brian, obviously, let's start with the Lightning in Tampa. Obviously, this series was huge for them, mentally and physically. How important was it for them to avenge the Columbus Blue Jackets in the way that they did?
A long road to redemption, that's for sure. It hurt them. It cut their guts out last year when they lost four straight, and it should have. When you tie a record with 62 wins, and then you go out four straight in a whimper like that, I mean, they fooled themselves into thinking that they could win with the style that they played all season long, and until it was too late. And then they had created a monster, in Columbus, and Columbus wasn't going to let them up off the mat. So it was devastating. There's no doubt. And then you have to hear about it all season, and then you have to hear about it when the playoffs start. And then everybody's saying, well, maybe you're going to play Columbus. Wouldn't that be great? Or would you rather play the Leafs? It's like, okay, fate determined it. And I think they were all glad for sure. So I think they buckled down even harder. But this wasn't just because they played Columbus that they played that style. Actually, let me say that differently. It is because of Columbus, but last year, right? So they changed their style in training camp. John Cooper said, we are going to be different. We are going to play different, and we've got some bad habits to break. So they went through that whole process. It was pretty uneven all the way up till Christmas, and then they really started to get it. And then they won 10 in a row once, 11 in a row, and I started going, now that is a team that knows how to play more than one way. So it didn't surprise me that they were able to play against Columbus the way they did. But boy, did they feel good at the end. I'm sure that locker room was ecstatic at the end of it yesterday.
And you come in this series, a lot of people were kind of questioned because they didn't have Steven Stamkos. And I think the Lightning could win without Stamkos. Who do you think is the most important player on that team, filled with stars like Kucherov, Hedman, Vasilevsky, even Palat, or overtime winning goal scorer Braden Point?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Michelle knows this one. 77, Victor Hedman, no doubt about it. Because if you remember last year, Victor was injured too. He didn't play. And so they had a chance. They certainly would have won some games. Victor, by far, is the most important. Now, I'm a little caveat there that you always have to have goaltending, right? You always do. So Vasilevsky is certainly in that conversation as well. But as far as the skaters go, there's no doubt that it's Victor Hedman. Victor can skate all day. And the way he plays, he can really change the tempo and control what's going on out there. So certainly it's him. Kucherov, certainly they would miss. Braden Point, they would miss for sure. They do miss Stammer, and the power play really shows it. But they can survive it because they've got some really good balance. But if Victor goes down, it's a huge hole. And they're not capable, in my mind, they're not capable of winning the cup. They could win a round or so, but he's that important to them.
We talked so much about, you said the Lightning had a lot of things they wanted to change at the end of last season, changing the way they played. They also brought in some new players to kind of help bolster that backbone. We always knew the Lightning could score. We knew that they like to play with the puck. They like to play quick. But now they have players that like to go in the gritty areas. They're not afraid to pick a fight at times. How have those players just helped round out this team and kind of prepare them for teams like a Columbus, like the Boston Bruins, so that they're not getting shaken when all of a sudden the physicality is up?
A big difference. Julien Brisebois did a heck of a job. Barclay Goodrow from San Jose and Blake Coleman were outstanding acquisitions because they're long-term also. Julien has kept the same kind of premise and idea that Steve Yzerman initiated. We don't, just rent players. We make changes and we keep those players. That's the idea. Zach Bogosian might be a little bit different there. That was an ad at the end, and Zach has played really well.
Mm-hmm.
And they got him for just money. They didn't have to give up anything because he'd been bought out by the Buffalo Sabres. But Zach has been overlooked, and he came into training camp 2 in terrific shape. And he had a great camp, and he really caught all of our eyes. And he's a rough, tough guy, and he can skate. So he's played a lot with Victor Hedman. But Coleman and Goodrow have really stepped in. They kill penalties. They're fast, and they're aggressive, and they hit. And they both had fights along the way. And that did matter a little bit. They literally fought their way into the lineup and into the hearts and minds of their teammates, you know. Goodrow did it in a game against the Boston Bruins right before the pause in Boston, and that's always a tough spot. And Anson, you know that really shows your teammates a lot, right? You go into that building, you pick a fight, and there were a couple of fights, no problem. So they really set a tone there. And then after the pause, it was kind of like, you know, they've already been here for a year. Everybody feels like that, I think. So that these 2 guys or 3 guys have really done the job that they're supposed to and are a big reason that the Lightning play the way they play now.
Angie, wouldn't you throw a guy like Patty Maroon in that mix also? You know, previous years, the Washington Capitals would just bully the Tampa Bay Lightning out of a series. And Patty Maroon brings that attitude. That I see him barking at guys all the time. The camera will swing over to him, and he's just chirping guys. And, you know, you've been in those teams where you have certain players in your team that make you feel like you're 5 or 6 inches taller on the ice. Yeah,
no doubt, Anson. And he's one of those guys, too, that it's hilarious, right? He's got all the great lines. And when he's chirping, you can't put it on the air. You know, he has just some great lines that, you know, it's funny. And guys on both teams will be laughing until he turns that cannon around on you, right? Then it's not so funny anymore. But he has been terrific for them because, he's a big boy. He has a reputation as a fighter. He dropped the mitts with Chara earlier in the year. I guess that's his 4th time in his career. And you know that everybody who does that takes a big gulp before they do. But again, he was showing something. But also what he's done is he's a very funny guy and he's very laid back. But at the same time, he's not shy. And I heard, you know, after the fact that there have been a couple of times in the locker room where he goes in there and he goes, "What is going on here? This is ridiculous," you know, and they'll listen to him, right? There are not a lot of guys on that team who are really aggressive that way. Victor Hedman's not like that. Stammer's not really like that. So I think it was important for Maroon coming from St. Louis and a cup team and really showing at different times of the year, like, this is not how you do it. Even though we won the game, you know, nope, it's not right. So he's been really important to the team.